Well, our subject this afternoon is cannabis, a subject which is of interest to large numbers of people, though it's rarely discussed, and in fact seems to have attained the status of somewhat of a taboo in polite society. My interest in it is intense and lifelong, I must say. I remember when I first encountered it, within a few minutes of my first exposure to it, I realized that I was going to be able to self-medicate myself to normalcy. I was, as an adolescent, what's called a nervous child, and sort of had a personal style that was very hard driving and, I'm told, fairly abrasive. And it really came with the force of a revelation that the mere smoking of a small amount of vegetable material could completely invert the structures of my personality and socialize me, as it were, into a reasonably functioning member of the community in which I found myself.
Inclined to blow my mind, get hung up, beat the ducks with a bum. They all come out to groove about, nice and have fun in the sun. It's all too beautiful.
And that spells a V-best. Fine stereo.
Alan,
Ladies and gentlemen.
you having a nightmare? What if it's true?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Secrets.
In a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
constant, extreme danger,
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
extreme danger,
that an announced need for increased security.
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park, live in
seized
Toronto.
upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no officious, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all of building would blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole f***ing life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know. Deserve to know.
Hello, thank you for dialing up Green Crush. We're live in Toronto. It's Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Thanks for tuning us in, dialing us up.
Facts they deserve to know.
Okay, raising our fists to say, among other things, that we're here to establish our rights. Hey. And we need to do that right now. Because a lot of decisions are being made, have been made, will be made. Made a mess, primarily from what I've been seeing lately. My goodness, the politicians are still in control, that's for sure. Politicians and cops are in control of the transition. And what does that mean for us? Is that a problem? I think so, yeah. Welcome to the show. Today we have, we got to get right to business, as I've been told. I better get on top of this. We have to get right on top of giving away the things that we gave away to people. The contest we've been having lately. Sorry, I got a little thing in my throat the last couple of days. I'm going to do this. Is that any better? Okay, hopefully that is something out of my throat there. Of course, you would have seen that if you're watching the show live, but you see how the sound, and it's different as the picture. Okay, so here we go with the contests that we've been having as it's written on our website. Contest time. That's right to the point, isn't it? Contest time. Contest time for Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. We are talking about green. What is green? Green is cannabis, usually. Sometimes it's money, but on this show, it's definitely not money. It's cannabis. And crush is what it can do to your illnesses. Specifically mine. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor, as I'm often branded by folks. A survivor. I like to think of it as a victor, actually. Because I can't believe I'm still sitting here given flashes of momentary insight into my own memory banks where some of the stuff you go through when you're a stage 4 cancer victim, you want to get victor if you get out on the other side. So I'll take that, but I'll also take survivor. I get it. People know that word. There's a TV show called that. But we do have a contest to deal with, and let's get that done now. So this is exciting because we're talking about a movie that's coming out soon that has an Indiegogo campaign, and we're going to be speaking with the creators of that film today. Our guest is Cody Lanktree, and he's here in the studio. So that's cool. We got another live in-studio guest. If you want to be a guest and you want to be on the show and you have something positive to contribute, come on down. And if you don't have something positive and if you have an opposing point of view, come on down. So far, no takers. I understand. It's difficult to put yourself out there. I was on a Facebook thread the other day, and someone was telling me, I'm going to give you the salient points of what they were going through. They said, okay, first of all, I used cannabis and chemo in my cancer recovery, and the cannabis didn't work, and the chemo did. And then the next point was, but I don't really know anything about cannabis. And then the next point was all the reasons why he knows it doesn't work, while also claiming to not know anything about it. So these are the folks. These are the kinds of people. At some point now, I just pick up my ball and go away at that point. I go, there's no way you're going to change this fellow's mind. He's made up his mind. It's bad stuff. He doesn't want to know about it. Not going to look into it. But knows that it's no good because he's made up his decision that, yeah, I'm beating a dead horse here. But this guy was talking to me for about an hour back and forth, and I finally realized, what are you doing? He's up to the quicksand, up to his neck. And you might want to save him, but he's up to his neck. Why risk yourself? So Cody Lanktree is here from Hamilton, all the way in from Hamilton. Is a winner of the Hamilton Independent Media Awards, or HEMA. Is that HEMA? HEMA? And anyway, nominated 5 times, won twice. Best Journalist for Social Justice and Human Rights. And also that was the movie, the Harper Man documentary. Remember that the guy that made a song about Harper, the previous Prime Minister of Canada, and then a song came out, and now a documentary. And so Cody did the documentary. He's here today. Not to talk about that, but we could if we, it's all right. It's not like out of bounds. It's just not as specific. And for Best Journalist, regarding the environment. Cody and Xena Haggerty, a documentary called Clean Up This Mess. And these are journalistic awards they give out in Hamilton for. They're called the Maggies. I don't even know why that is. There's probably some great historical reason that I don't know regarding the Hamilton journalist scene. But the Maggies, an award's an award. If it's in the field you're in, good for you. And so his bio is that he's most often inspired by dialogue created by the connection between time, beauty, and our personal limits. So we're going to talk about that. Or, sorry, our personal truths. Well, let's talk about that. Sometimes truth is in a limit. In the 10 years since HamiltonSeen's inception, and that's SEENS, HamiltonSeen, Cody has guided the company from small commercial production to white boxing partnerships with major marketing firms, and finally to the creation of documentaries, and that's why he's here today. So we've got some video links to play later when he comes in, and we'll see about this movie. It's called Dispensed With. This is what he is here for today. It's Indiegogo.com. And you go to Dispensed With, a Canadian Cannabis Documentary. And if there's anything that's important right now regarding all of this transformation into how we're sliding around our cannabis rules around the world, as I broadcast from Canada at 234 King Street East in Toronto's, well, it's kind of a cool part of downtown. And we are at the Pacific Junction Hotel. Come in and get some food and some drinks. Sit around and talk about it with us. Talk about the place. Talk about the topics on the show. Here at Eggplant Digital Media. Brought to you by Eggplant Digital Media. That's like saying it twice and you're getting double bang for your buck on the commercial. See? But you're concise with it. So the contest winners. All right. Now we have to get to the contest winners. They have names, so hopefully they're listening, and if not, we will contact them and send them whatever it is they won. Books and things. We gave away a big ritual box. That was pretty cool. Everybody wanted to get that one. But that's not what this is. Okay, here we go. So the book winner is at Stonercast. At Stonercast. Check them out on your internet device. Another great show about all things cannabis. And when I say another great show, I guess I was subconsciously referring to this one. But I think it is, or I wouldn't stick with it. I really think there's more good things to come on this show. And on that show, too, at Stonercast and so many other shows, because it's a shifting paradigm. If you can't see it, I don't know how to better tell you. You got like 50 hours of this kind of stuff online for your perusal and understanding. Previous shows, we're way up there now. What are we at? 30, 33, 32. This is episode 32, so, of Green Crush. And lots of information on these previous episodes on where to go, who to ask, how to learn, how to help yourself in a health capacity by using this substance, cannabis. And now marijuana is actually a racist thing. With all this sort of hard to the left tacking of what we can and can't say, it's probably time to erase the word marijuana from the lexicon, since it was a pejorative term invented by those to make this substance look bad. Racism's been around for a long time, and it actually tainted this entire venture. So let's just call it cannabis, and if that's what we're going to do with all of these other words. Man, I'm dry today. I got to keep drinking. All right. Here are the winners. Mike Gould. Mike Gould is a winner. Ken Proud is a winner. Annie Edmonds, Jamie Horan, and Colleen McIsaac. They're all winners of the Great Cannabis Conspiracy book. Okay, so everybody gets that, and you will get blown away when you read that book by Dr. Sam. I swear, that is a great piece of work, and we're looking forward to more people understanding what's going on in the Great Cannabis Conspiracy by Dr. Sam Malachi. So those are the winners. We have more contests going on. Go to the @GreenCrushPod, thing on the internet, and check us out there. And there will be more contests. And I made a mistake. Those winners, they're not getting the book. That was just that's just for @StonerCast, and it's everybody else there was a winner of the download of the movie that we're about to see, or we're about to learn about when we get Cody in here. Was that not clear? I guess not. Okay, Kim, the producer, just making. If she interpreted it that way, I have to assume that I didn't speak it very well. So there you go. Those are the 10 folks, the folks that are going to be winning the downloads of the movie, and @StonerCast is the winner of the book. But if you didn't win the book, also, then go out and buy it. You want to learn about what's in that book. So now, on with the nonsense of the day. Is really what it's all about at this point. Canada, right? We'll start here and work our way out to the rest of the world. Because I live here. It's easier that way. If I start here and then I just keep moving on out, hopefully. All right, so let's see. Marijuana concerns continue to dominate the Senate debate on Bill C-45. So if you're to sum it up, there have been several dates punted around as to when this is going to happen, and they keep disavowing knowledge of the previous date, and then they offer another date. And now it's supposed to be July 1st, but we know that's not going to happen because the cops are upset. Now the senators are freaking out because they just started to read things. Maybe they just started looking at it. But this show today is about timelines, and these kinds of information are amazing to me. But so there was an agreed to June 7 deadline to vote on the federal government's Cannabis Act for the Senate, and they are not elected or appointed by, or they weren't appointed by Trudeau. So that debate, along with the examination of the Cannabis Act by a number of Senate committees, will almost certainly result in proposed amendments to the bill, which is a fancy way of saying this thing is riddled with nonsense. Let's fix it. Because these folks who call everybody criminals who were using this substance before, now they're criminals, and now the government's going to do it, and they don't know what they're doing. And we'll find that out a bunch today as well. So the Senate debate has been going that they want to involve all kinds of amendments to this bill. And many of the senators are concerned. There's not just one guy sitting there with his thumb up, There's a lot of people upset about this. Between conflicts of government, between conflicts of federal governments and provincial governments, and all kinds of nonsense, just because this thing is now going to be legal. So that's what they're saying. The senators may slow things down, may cause a delay. It's all a big concern, a big drama going on about whatever the senators think. This is another piece of information regarding the Liberal government. Here's a conservative senator saying the police. Here's one thing that senators are upset about: is the police won't be ready for high drivers by the Canada Day deadline. That's what this particular senator says. His name is Senator Claude Carignan. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Don't hold me to it. Speaking on the legislation about driving under the influence of drugs. And so if the police don't know how to enforce it, and they don't know, the government doesn't know how to understand at this point, how to tell. At this point in history, if you can't tell, and you're unable to discern whether someone is impaired, this is the big problem, and I'm going to try to explain it to folks who might be new. We've been getting some new people saying, well, I'm just going to start from the beginning and work forward, but I'm going to watch your new show tomorrow. So here's the new show. So here's what you need to know. When I took the cannabis oil for my cancer problems that don't anymore seem to plague me, what happened was I had to start very, very small doses. This is the recommended dosage of the cannabis oil. You don't just introduce a gram of oil into your blood every day because it is psychoactive. It is a concentrated dose. And it is going to give you one hell of a ride if you use it improperly. this is education about the substance, not indoctrination. This is what I'm telling you is that it's a very, very concentrated format of the entire, you're basically got represented an entire cannabis plant, a 6-foot bushy plant from tip to root, baked on down, cooked on down to a tiny 60-gram vial, and you take this over 90 days. So you have to start with what I call pinheads, tiny little half a rice grain, half an uncooked dry rice grain. And you start with that, and hopefully you won't feel it at all, particularly if you've never had, I sound like Tom Brokaw for a minute there, particularly if you've never had cannabis before. So you need to start off slowly. There's no point rushing through the procedure. And but if you take, say, two pinheads, you know, like on a pin, tiny little thing, you take 2 pinheads of that, you're going to be very tripped out. You're going to be riding the rails of craziness at that point because you took too much too fast. It's not like smoking a half a joint or something. This is a powerful induction into your system of a super concentrated, fantastic elements in terpenes and cannabinoids. But the thing that gets you high, the THC, is also concentrated at that point, which is great because you're using it for healing. But you have to go very slowly. Now, I'm explaining on the one hand how to take this oil if you need to turn your health around, so it's a bit of a refresher. And I'm also explaining that the impairment laws and why the grounds are that I believe that they are completely off the rails and don't make sense. And these folks are freaking out because they know if they're going to come out with the laws that we've been hearing about, they're going to be constitutionally challenged all over the place, scientifically challenged, and why these folks don't want to get this right before we usher in the paradigm of people getting arrested and everything else. It's about time they learn this thing before they create that hell that could happen in the courts and families and people getting busted and all of that. So I'm trying to say that if you take this tiny little pinhead amount, you're good. If you have 2 too quickly or even 3 pinheads, that's not a lot, right? 3 pinheads. That's not a lot, right? But it is if you haven't had it before. And you gradually build your way up until, now you're taking 5, 6 pinheads. Now you're taking a whole rice grain. Okay. Now you're taking 2 rice grains. And your body eventually, through the homeostatic process, how about that? It eventually metabolizes, and it's no longer a psychoactive engager at that point. It's, you're fine. And you've learned how to build your tolerance, or you've trained your body to build its tolerance. And so when you get to that stage, 3 pinheads, you're not going to feel it. It's not even going to be there. You're going to be taking a gram a day of oil at that point by the time you've built up the immunity. This is information, by the way, not a commercial. Please put down your legal books. So what I'm saying is by the time you take a few of these pinheads and you build up your tolerance and you're on your way to a gram a day, and then you're regularly taking a gram a day for the rest of the 3 months, in order to chase away your cancer, as I have done, instead of realizing that at a gram a day, so if I started with that back when I was supposed to be taking a pinhead, you can imagine. I mean, you're going to pass out. You probably go into what they call a green coma. Is that what it is? Green out, and you'll be asleep for maybe a day and a half. That's all true. It's a thing you have to learn that this stuff is a tool, and don't be one and use it incorrectly. So the point being, if you've already figured it out, since I'm leading you towards why this impaired driving thing is a total crock of shit, and I don't care if it's a problem for them. It doesn't matter that it might be inconvenient for the filers and the filing cabinet openers and the pushers of paper, etc., to go ahead and arbitrarily arrest people for something that they don't really seem to care too much about the fact it's scientifically unsound. And that point is this. If I take a sleeve of this stuff, 1 gram, And I take that and I'm doing that for 3 months. And I'm into the cycle where I've taken it in and I've acclimatized to its psychoactive effects. And I'm not impaired, and I can do anything that there is to be done without fear of impairment because it's not like alcohol, and it shouldn't be purveyed by folks who are all about that. But it is. And I can operate with that gram in me. Not just me, the person, anybody who has built up their tolerance, and there are thousands of us. So open up to that fact as well. That folks are able to tolerate this dose because it eventually becomes normal. But if you're just starting out and you take a half a pinhead and then a rice grain, then you move on to 5 rice grains and you jump there too fast, and then let's say the next night you go, yeah, you know what? It's Friday. I'm going to take this whole gram. You're going to be so spaced out. It's unbelievable, but you're already spaced out on the little tiny, tiny amounts. So the question is, how is it that a person, okay, settle down. I'm not trying to get anything going in that direction. If you're a person operating a vehicle or whatever the sobriety test might be, and you're taking a gram a day, it's completely conceivable, gram a day of oil, it's completely conceivable that you can operate that vehicle with 100% safety accuracy just as well. And there's data to back a lot of this up, okay? Not every single thing I'm saying has data behind it. But that's my opinion behind there. But there is data to show that it doesn't interfere the way alcohol does. Your body's trying to purge alcohol every second it's in there. That's why it's off-gassing, later. You had too much, wake up in the morning, smell like the bottle you drank last night. It's still coming out of you. It's chasing. Cannabis doesn't do that because it's a nutrient, and it doesn't want to leave your body. And I don't know why people that set laws and policies continue to pretend not to know that shit. So, yeah. Where was I? You can't prove a guy is intoxicated or impaired driving simply because he tests positive for having cannabis in the system. Like, that's the whole story. There's nothing more to it than that. This is the fact, Jack. We've made so many predictions on the show. We should get a cheat sheet together because I can't even remember them all regarding the implementation and what they're going to say. And I've got things to say about the future of this business that people aren't going to like either. But been right about a lot of things if you keep your eye on the ball. And this particular issue of impairment, because you have it in your system, is bullshit. It's just fiction. And you cannot build a legal paradigm around that. And I think they're starting to get the idea that some of us who know this will pursue this to the nth degree in the courts. And they will have to change their ways. Just like they're saying they're doing now. So that's what this senator is upset about. Won't be ready to detect them or not. It's not possible. That's why. So here come the wheels off the bus as they try to bullshit their way closer to ramming bogus laws based on a non-science. The science of telling me that if there's cannabis in my body, I'm impaired. That is, on its face, as ridiculous as saying, because I have cabbage in my body, I'm impaired. It's a plant. It has a psychoactive agent in it, but if your body, and everybody's different. Everybody's going to be at a different level. That's the other thing they're upset about. How can you get a guy busted for, 2 rice grains impaired worth of stuff in his system, and another guy has an entire gram, and they're getting different sentences? Like, it doesn't make sense. So they are struggling with that down there at the old City Hall. And by that, I mean Canada's Parliament and all the other provincial legislatures. So that's what they're trying to do with pot drivers. Pull you over. You test positive for cannabis, and there's a good chance of that you will if you had some within the last month. Whereas if you got really canned up couple of nights ago at the bar. 2 days later, I'm sure you're fine, at the very most. So it's a different game, and they're trying to put the same rules on it, and it's so boring because they've been doing that from the beginning, since they started to budge on this. You know, they don't cite research. Bill Blair doesn't cite research such as, you know, the new study from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration finding that drivers who use marijuana, cannabis, are at a significantly lower risk for a crash than drivers who use alcohol. And then they go, yeah, but we don't want any crashes from that, and they don't test them for any kind of prescription drugs. But after adjusting for age, gender, race, and alcohol use, drivers who tested positive for cannabis were no more likely to crash than those who had not used any drugs or alcohol prior to driving. Okay, that is the major point right there. It's not a factor. Hey, that's fake news you got going there. That's bullshit. You can't. Yeah, it's the Washington Post. Okay, everybody loves the Washington Post. It's a mainstream publication, Washington Post, February 9th, from 2015. Now, this was before the big storm on pushing these things through, so they kind of forget that these articles exist. And if they've begotten themselves further into the science at this point with these machines, we'd be hearing all about it. But no, the newest word up on this is that it's all bullshit. That's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Alcohol more dangerous. Duplicities, man. You know, it's just duplicity. They just arbitrarily set down a set of rules. Like, okay, so for example, you know when you get those ride checks when they pull you over to see if you've been drinking, how many times have you ever seen one of those set up relatively close to a well-known police watering hole bar? Like how many? You know, so when they leave the place, they go into the parking lot and drive home. Not those places. Different games for different folks. And then we have to deal with the police are at the schools now here in York Region, just north of Toronto. Says that the issue of kids smoking pot was relegated to the shadows. Everyone knew some kids indulged, but few dared discuss it. Now, recreational marijuana is being made legal, and educators, police, and mental health workers say it's time to talk. None of the experts on the use of it, you know, it's always the critics. It's always the critics with these folks. And, you know, that wouldn't bother me so much except for when the police are saying things like, doobies make boobies. Got a police officer here saying that he was telling folks that men grow breasts when you smoke this stuff. That's the message that an officer for Canada's York Regional Police shared with high school boys during a drug awareness talk. So we have people who admit they don't know anything about this and they need more information, and they're trying to get more information, but they're already teaching people things like this that are wrong. You know, so here's an article this guy was probably reading, this cop, if he was doing that. Here's an article from December 2013. It says, does smoking marijuana give you man boobs? A plastic surgeon claims this. Anthony Yoon says moobs are caused by an imbalance in levels of testosterone and estrogen. Cannabis causes testosterone levels to fall. Therefore, you're going to have boobs. Well, I don't know anybody in this particular bracket. That's what this guy says. An American plastic surgeon. So, you know when the media complains about anecdotal stories? Like, I know I'm always trying to tell my story about what happened to me, and it's anecdotal because you're just telling it as a story, which I'm telling because I'm alive to be able to tell a story, right? So anyway, but anecdotal. How much more anecdotal can you get than an American plastic surgeon says? Doesn't have a lot of backing here, and it's in a British publication newspaper. Dr. Yoon added that men who smoke marijuana and have moobs should probably put out their joints. Good doctorly advice from the one single solitary plastic surgeon in the United States. Man boobs are caused by an imbalance in the body's testosterone and estrogen, and cannabis can cause testosterone levels to fall. That's what he says. But there's no evidence of this and nothing since. And so, of course, police are going to be telling kids that as well, or other folks. And so while all that's going on, we have this earmarked $36.4 million to teach Canadians about the perils of pot, which they're legalizing. Yeah, $36 million for people that don't know what they're talking about and are out there spreading lies and haven't done the research yet and don't really know how it works or if it works or why it works. Getting ready to tax it, eh? Getting ready to say, okay, it's legal and stuff, but it's still $1 a gram tax. What other pharmaceutical has this? And you're supposed to ignore the conspiracy aspect. I'm sure it's got nothing to do with the companies. They have your best interest at heart. Okay. That's why we're spending $37 million to teach Canadians about the perils of pot. And we're spending $0 on the positives of pot. That's the decision made at Operation Central Stupid Town, Ottawa. We're going to spend tens of millions of dollars telling you you can cut your throat with a chainsaw. It's terrible. You could cut yourself. You could stick your hand in the thing that you pull the motor to start it and get your shirt caught in there. Let's just talk about that. Let's not talk about how the chainsaw, when used effectively, is a great means to clear woods and perhaps even gather up enough utility in the forest to build yourself a home. Let's not put that part in there. This is propaganda. I don't know why people don't see it. Not that nobody sees it, but it's usually what I get into arguments about lately. Oh, you really think the government does it? Yeah, I really think the government is doing that, yeah. So that's what Global News says, that the 5-year, $36.4 million program to help teach Canadians. All right. More propaganda. And they spent $650,000 to do a cannabis store logo. This thing, if you don't see it, I don't even want to put it up on the screen. I don't want to promote it. It's just a circle with the Spartan letters OCS in the middle. $650,000 to build this. I know it's done by an ad agency, but look at the Green Crush logo. We had Kurt Furla do that for far less than $650,000. Love you, Kurt, but I just couldn't pony up the above $500,000. But it's a way better logo. Thanks, man. So there's all kinds of bullshit going on. And then basically this is an entire system owned and operated and run by people that are telling people that already know what's going on with this substance, how it works, what it's about, how it brings relief. And there's an industry already around it with people who already know these things and have tested these things. And if you read the papers, they're called criminals. And now the government's stopping them and branding them things, and they're going to take over control and profiting and all of that. So anyway, we're going to bring our guest in, and he's outside puffing on something. We might find out what that is, but this is a live show, and he's out there, and the smoking area is directly outside the window here. Isn't that handy? Cody Lanktree is going to be coming in here to talk about the documentary being made, where you can go to help fund it, all in the means to get this thing. And by that thing, I mean this movie out, this information out, these facts out, these rights needs out, so that people understand what we're dealing with here. It doesn't need to be a punitive thing, but I do so believe there are many folks with that kind of interest at heart that are trying to make it punitive. You know, I mean, you're going to spend $37 million scaring the shit out of us about all the bad things that can happen and spend $0 on telling us how effective and how great it is. There's no balance there whatsoever. You want to be sensible. You want to call yourself sensible. You're not. They have to invent parties, political parties called sensible to be sensible. You can only partake of this in your home. Well, my kids are there. Well, you have to do it there. Well, I'm in a rental building, and my landlord says I'm not allowed to. Well, I can't help you out. Like, it doesn't... We can't keep doing that kind of shit. Particularly when we're losing money left, right, and center. You're spending $650,000 on a line drawing to make sure no one's interested in it. And let's not forget that we're living in a society here in Canada anyway, where Ottawa, the capital of this whole thing, lost track of $3.1 billion meant to fight terror, but it disappeared. And these are the folks still at the helm. This has been going on through different administrations, but they keep doing that. This is the ethos of government, is to fail and to be way too expensive and to bugger things up and to control things. So with a person like our guest today, Cody Lanktree, coming in to talk about their movie and how they're funding that movie, we're going to find out a little bit more, I guess. So thanks for coming into the studio. Oh, there's your mic. I always do that. Okay,
I'll
now
say it again. My pleasure, sir.
It's his pleasure. We're here. It's kind of now it's snowing out here. Wow.
That's a gorgeous day. One of those like last little bits of winter, right?
Yeah, it is.
Feels good.
Hopefully last bit. Yeah. So anyway, Cody is what are you, a director?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your getting into the cannabis awareness that you do have. Prior to even putting this thought together of making a movie.
Well, I'll give you a brief history of cannabis. For me, is in my mid-20s, I managed a nightclub here in Toronto, and I was working 75 hours a week. Had casually been smoking before then, and suddenly I was smoking about 3 joints a day, and I was running myself ragged,
right?
Basically, and I was dealing with it by smoking a lot of weed. And didn't think of it as a medical thing at the time at all. Just didn't even ever consider it. I was just like, I like this. Life is good. I'm having a fantastic time. Smoked my face off. Worked my butt off. One day, my boss dropped a couple kilos of coke onto my desk and told me to put it in the safe. And I was like, oh, I quit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Couple of kilos.
Exactly. I was just completely stunned by this.
Let's not name any names.
Out of the blue. Right no. Really lovely guy outside of that one thing, I think. And just completely surprised me. So I quit. And I had not been cashing paychecks for like a year. I'd just been living off of a whole bunch of other monies that were coming in and stuff like that, and had no time to spend a penny other than on rent. And realized that I was sitting on a bunch of money. Moved up to Kitchener, decided to go back to school for film theory to become a filmmaker. And sat there for 6 months and didn't know what to do with myself, and was still in the habit of smoking a lot, but suddenly didn't really feel the need for it, and grew a little bit of cannabis, thinking, well, this is an easy way to save money.
Right.
And by the time
you?
Not ultimately, but what I did was I learned a great deal about something because I fully nerded out on how to grow cannabis, and quietly just grew a half dozen plants in a closet in my little wee apartment, and I thought, oh, this is a neat little thing to do.
Right. How many plants?
Oh, like between 6 and 10. 6 and 10. What was legal then? I can't recall. That amount when they had decriminalized things under Kretchen. So it wasn't even, if the police had walked in, they would have been like, nice plants, dude.
Right.
Which was a fine state of affairs at a certain point. I didn't mind that at all. But the process of doing that, I was taking care of something, nurturing its life, and learning something and going through a process of growth myself, and also working 0 hours a week instead of 75. I calmed the heck down.
Right.
And stopped smoking completely. Didn't want it, didn't need it, didn't carry forward the habit with it, and found myself not really that into it. So at the end of it, I very proudly had a couple pounds.
Right.
And that was
nice.
Great. And all of my friends loved me for it.
Sure.
Because I was just like, I'll
giving
try
it away
this
at this point.
Yeah. And I'm like, here, guys, everybody enjoy. And then I stopped. Just, had nothing to do with it for many years. I'd be in a party situation and somebody would pass me one. I'd be like, I remember the taste of that. Let me have a little bit of it. Not a bad thing. Completely fine in my life. And just kind of over the last year, I've been having issues with anxiety for years. I'm getting into a place where work is something that's really intense for me sometimes, and other life things are really intense. And I was like, wow, I could really use some clonazepam or some Valium, or and I'm thinking about the process to go through that. And you talk to a doctor, and I don't have a regular doctor. You just talk to a plain old doctor and at a clinic or something like that, and they're like, no, that stuff's addictive, and I'm not going to sign you a script for it. Or the opposite is they'll sign you up for a script for it and not even tell you that it's addictive.
Right. Next thing you know, you're hooked.
Not really my jam. And somebody mentioned CBD oil as a thing to try. And in my head, I'm well versed in the past in cannabis and what it does. I was like, I don't know if that's really a thing or the answer for me. I know what getting high is about, and whatever probably isn't really going to help me, but I'll try it because you know what? There's zero risk. Literally, I'm going to drop $60 on this and see if it works for me. So I tried it, and I took the little amount that they told me to take, and my bottom lip went a little bit numb, and I was like, that's kind of funny. And I was like, prepared myself mentally for getting high. I was like, oh, in a few minutes, I'm not really going to be able to do anything, and I won't have any focus or anything like that. But the exact opposite was true. So when I'm in a state of anxiety, life becomes a little bit blurry. Life is blurry. Yeah, a little bit blurry. Like it's like my brain is running too fast, so it slows itself down. And my vision goes slightly foggy, and I'm unsure about things. Anyway, I took the CBD oil. 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, hey.
And was it?
I'm actually okay right now.
An inhale? What was it again?
No, it's just oil. So you just put a couple drops of it under your tongue, that kind of thing, or and
got the CBD hookah here. This is
an amazing thing.
Little puffer. That's pretty great. So that was your first time, and you felt it right away.
Yeah, immediately I was like, okay, basically this is the equivalent of my having taken 2 clonazepam. Okay. And crunching them up in my cheek and making sure that they work really well.
And what is that kind of drug? I don't know what that is.
It's a loxazepam, oxazepam, lorazepam. It's a whole family of drugs that are systemic depressant drugs. So they stop your brain from over-revving, basically.
Oh, okay.
But they're fairly highly addictive
and
drugs.
They bum you out because they're depressants? Or
No, they don't bum you out. Not depressant in that way. Just depressant in the manner of slowing down your brain a little bit. Like, basically, my brain revs too high.
Okay.
And me slowing it down means that I'm actually functionally smarter.
So what problems did you have with the clonazepams, etc., the alphabet soup things, where you felt, okay, this is good, and then you hit a point where, no, it's not?
Well, I varying times have had prescriptions for those kinds of drugs, and I'll just be really blunt about it. Some of them make your dick not work. Some of them make you not able to be so happy in life. Some of them, it's kind of, they're levelers. So they take away the highs, they take away the lows, they take away the extremities of the things that you're going through in life. Which, if those are all extremely bad things, I'm not here to say that antidepressant or anti-anxiety drugs are wrong. I'm just saying, for me, it took away a lot of the good things in life and made the bad things slightly better. It just kind of leveled it all out into a place where I was
in your perception of things,
and your perception of things, in how other people are perceiving you as well. Like, you're just kind of more of a bland person, and I'm not down with that.
Give me one example of a time where you were anxious. Like, I'll give you one.
Sure.
You're sitting in traffic, the road's not moving, and you're going to be late in 20 minutes. And,
totally.
Have you had that?
I've totally had that. But anxiety is also a larger issue that changes your base state. So it's not just a bad moment. I think every human being can have bad moments where we're like, oh man, this is messed up and I don't know how to deal.
But if you have that kind of sensation, but spread over a more important or larger life issue, and you're wound up like
take one of those and spread it out over an entire month. And what it means is that your base state is more anxious, and you're more likely to, in bad moments, completely lose it. Wow. And you're more likely to just have a hard time dealing with things like getting a traffic ticket and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And can I pay this? Do I have enough money? And this, it makes things like that turn into the biggest thing in the world, rather than, oh, here's the credit card, deal with it. It's anyway.
So, I was just feeling that out because you did take those, and it did kind of go that way. And then you're doing the same thing later for CBDs for the same kind of anxiousness. And how did that go for you?
The exact same problem. I took the CBD with really low expectations of it. I just thought that it was a thing that's worth trying because somebody told me that it was worth trying, and had really profound results. I sat down to work after I took it, and felt really good and really excited, and I actually was writing something, and everything just flowed, and I didn't feel high. I didn't feel like I wasn't me. I just felt good and okay, and my brain was sharp. Not clouded by a drug, not anything else. And it was a really good thing, just instantly. So instantly, like taking a Valium or something like that to deal with being on a flight. It allowed me to manage that little bit of time.
Wow. And
since then, I've discovered that if you take it on the regular, it brings down your base state of anxiety, which is the whole problem with this disorder, is that it keeps increasing, right? And makes you more prone to having panic attacks and stuff. So CBD is bringing down the base state to the point where I can handle crazy shit now that would have destroyed me for days before.
So that's when you're taking a regular drug like Zoloft or whatever, some kind of thing in that zone. They all tell you, and I'm just picking on that one because it came to my mind, but similar drugs.
Well, let's pick on Paxil because I have experience with Paxil.
But the premise of all of these, if I'm not mistaken, and they're all different companies and whatever, but the basic premise is, here, take this, and you have to start packing it in, and don't expect results tomorrow or the next day.
It's going to take a couple of weeks kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's the same thing, and then you're setting a baseline there with that particular drug.
Yeah, so think about like an audio waveform, which you might be seeing on your recording device right now, where you have the spikes below and above the line, and this is bass and this is treble. Paxil's going to take that wave form and compress it like an MP3 compresses it.
From
less
the high end
quality
to the top
of life.
And
it's going to take away the spikes, whether they be the really good spikes, the crazy good orgasm, or the oh my god, I just accomplished this, or whatever, and it's going to numb those out. And it's also going to take away the really bad shit. And so I don't tell anybody that these drugs are bad for them. I just say that they weren't necessarily good for me, because I think those drugs do save some people's lives.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
And it's fantastic. But for me, I was losing the really good stuff and losing the really bad stuff. And the middle wasn't really as good as the middle could be for me.
Right.
And with CBD, I'm getting rid of the bottom bad stuff and still have all of the good stuff. And my mind is sharp as heck. I'm clever. And these are the things that I like most about myself, is being, the ability to be clever now and then with words and type out something that's amazing, learn and help other people learn about things. So that's like my prime motivator in making films.
So that's why you're a filmmaker, right? Yeah. I was going to say. That's incredible. So how long have you been actually just taking the CBDs?
It's probably between 8 and 10 months. It might be as much as a year. And it's generally been a fantastic thing. I'm not going to say that it solved the problem. I'm still a person with anxiety, and I'm still a person with problems. But it's been good in an overall kind of sense, and I'm very glad of it.
Yeah. So the movie then is in a state of tell us where it's at in its life and production.
Yeah.
And it's obviously not finished yet.
Well, so every once in a while, I'm lucky enough to live a life where every once in a while something really frustrates me or looks completely wrong, and I kind of see most people miss it. So I have the opportunity to have looked at the coming legislation for cannabis in Ontario, and I looked at that and I was like, whoa, okay, so this means that this CBD oil that I'm using on the regular,
benefiting from wonderfully,
made a decision on my own without a doctor, did my very good own research and stuff like that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have doctors, and I think doctors can give good advice on these things.
But you know how you feel at that point.
Yep.
You're saying,
I know that this has worked for me. And I know through some research that there's nothing wrong, and that nothing can go wrong. There's no way of, like, if I had a glass full of it like this and drank it down, it might make me nappy, and
it take a lot, though.
Yeah. You can take a whole bunch
more
of
than
CBD
you'd want
oil.
to spend to take a nap.
Oh hell no! Waste a huge waste of money. But so ultimately, there's no real downside to trying CBD, and at that point, I hadn't really focused on the THC and other aspects of cannabis or anything like that. But I'm looking at this law, and basically it's saying that the product that I've been using and buying from really lovely folks around the corner of my house that keep a nice clean shop. Vikki.
The criminals.
Yeah, Vikki that you've
she'll be. We're going to dial Vikki up shortly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Vikki's there in the shop, and I like walk in and high five her, and she hands me a little vial of CBD, and I walk away, and it's all lovely and safe and clean, and everybody's nice and cool, and then the provincial government is saying, here's how the laws are going to be soon. And my possession of that thing, as purchased through there, goes from being a probably legal transaction, or at the very least a transaction that has been demonstrated repeatedly in the Supreme Court of Canada,
over and over
to
again.
be legal.
Like, get out of here.
There's never been a legal challenge about cannabis or CBD for medical purposes that hasn't been granted to the folks challenging the current laws.
Yeah.
So this is where I look at it as that's legality. That's legality as dictated by the Supreme Court after a great deal of consideration. And I'm looking at these laws, and they just make no sense. Like, literally, when the law comes in, that transaction...
This is the Ontario...
The Ontario law.
Okay, right.
That transaction that I'm making with the lovely Vikki to buy my CBD oil with a little hint of THC in it becomes a transaction that can be punished with up to 2 years in jail, and up to $200,000 fine.
Yeah, because
that's like, okay. So if I was growing a pot plant in my front yard and smoking it and saying, "Cops, come and get me," right now, the results of that are actually fairly minimal. They come and lay the most charges that they can, and the judge throws it out of court. But even if the judge takes it super seriously and gives me the max, it's not very much. It's
compared
a little
to this
fine.
liquid solution.
And if I do it 5 times, it's still like under a year of jail time.
Yeah.
But when the law changes for legalization of cannabis, so this movement forward that we're supposed to be having in Canada, it becomes that my crime is all the worse.
Yeah,
you know,
it's and this is a substance, and it comes right down to there's all these laws, all these legal challenges. They've been doing this forever. You've got the Parker ruling. They keep going back to the trough. It's the same old nonsense, and you know, this is a substance that helps people.
Yeah,
you know, these folks are monsters.
Exactly. So I decided that I'd make a movie about it. Like instantly, I was just like, "This is preposterous."
Yeah.
Made a Facebook post. I'm lucky enough to have, you know, thousands of Facebook friends, and a couple of them are watching this. Hey guys, but I made a Facebook post and basically talked about it, and a whole bunch of people inboxed me.
Right.
A couple people commented on the Facebook post.
Right.
So this is an important differentiation.
Okay.
A whole bunch of people reached out to me quietly and said, I am a user of medical cannabis.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, did you get it from your doctor? They're like, no, I did some research. I learned, I talked to some friends. I went to a dispensary. It has completely changed my life, Cody. Oh my God, this is so good. You know, people that are shedding tears of joy over the difference in their life that this has made with epilepsy.
That's the anecdotal thing again, because 100%. People say what you're saying is, I've got a similar story, somebody else has it. They just keep saying it's anecdotal, and they don't pay attention to the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of these anecdotes.
Yep. Well, there are. It's a two-way thing. There are hundreds of thousands of these anecdotes, and we shouldn't ignore those. To my mind, we should use those as a reason to do the science.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
And
this is crazy that these folks that run things,
science now too.
They'll just say, "No, listen, it's anecdotal," and you say, "Well, why do you just sit on the fact that there are a never-ending flow of these anecdotes?" Yeah, it's got to be worth some kind of contact.
And we're reaching a point where there is a flow of studies, so that they've proven that CBD itself has a fantastic effect on folks who are epileptic. It doesn't make epilepsy go away. It makes the seizures stop for children, you know, who are suffering from Dravet syndrome or Dravet syndrome. Whatever. For anybody that's dealing with these kinds of issues, it's worth trying, because the negative is pretty close to zero.
It's the fourth door, folks, for cancer anyway. It's the fourth door. That's what I call it.
That's the one that I would like to see a lot more research in. Yeah. Because to my mind, the risks of not doing, you know, not doing the chemo treatments that they want you to do when you go in to see the doctor, the risks of not doing that is death. And I think it's important to differentiate there what is proven and what isn't. I want them to prove it.
Let's get testing. Let's go.
Yeah,
Come
and
on.
go all out.
Right.
And invest all of the money to make that happen so that we can make this change.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a super good chance that this functions in the way, and I'm glad it functioned for you. Like, that's an
Me
amazing
too.
thing. You know, I'm glad you're here.
Me too. It's every not every day, but every once in a while, like 2, 3, 4 times a week now, I'll just be sitting there going, I'm not supposed to be here, man.
Yeah.
You know, that's and sometimes with some of the shit I'm going through, I kind of wish I didn't make it, but
At least you can laugh about it.
At least I can laugh about it. Yeah, that's the only thing that keeps you sane at this point. So listen, I want to say that is it Smythe or Smith?
I think it's Smythe, but I'm
Smythe,
not certain.
yeah, it looks like Smythe. I spoke with her yesterday, but I didn't get the pronunciation. But it looks like it must be Smythe, and she is a location manager for a dispensary in Hamilton, the town where Cody is also from, and putting this film together for us. And she also went to see Kathleen Wynne. So she's my sister, as well as being, because I did that back in November on the anniversary of my diagnosis. So I got a special kick out of that. But I'm not the only person who's running these flags up for the poll for these politicians. Vikki Smythe, this is great that you're on today, because we're gonna play a bit of this, and we're going to get Vikki on the phone for a second, too. All right, so here is Kathleen Wynne, and here is Vikki speaking to Kathleen. So good on you for getting her attention in the first place. It's not easy to do. So let's see if we can, maybe you'll be able to hear this one, hopefully, out of the side. So here we go. This is Vikki Smythe here, taking on the premier of this province.
Our priority is to protect young people, to make sure that there are safety measures in place.
But I can go into a liquor store at 19 and purchase something that's 100 times more more toxic than marijuana.
So can I just the second thing that we are we're tasked with doing is undercutting the black market, because that is what is creating the criminal element. And so I hear what you're saying, that there's a network of stores that have grown up around the medical marijuana issue. We're moving into a different world where legalization of marijuana in general is happening, and so we're working very hard to put in place a system that's going to protect people, that is going to be able to undercut the black market, and we're starting with a
40
few
stores is not going to undercut the black market. That's going to shove people right back in.
40 stores is just the beginning, and I think you know that. You think you
know
1 year.
There's 48 stores in Hamilton, ma'am, and
Yeah, there's 48 stores in Hamilton, and Kathleen...
Actually, I can correct those numbers for
Is
you
that
if you
right?
want 'em.
Okay.
As of about a month ago, before the police started bringing in the bus, we had about 58 stores.
58.
And
in Hamilton.
In Hamilton
the
alone.
size
So a population of 500,000.
Right.
As of right now, I think we have 67, but it keeps shifting every day. Some close and more open than close. So even with the police actively shutting down or trying to raid dispensaries, they're still growing and more of them.
Right. Unbelievable. Well, we are going to try to get her on the phone now. She says she's at the dispensary all day. That's what Vikki told me earlier. I just wanted to get her take live, and I won't interrupt the way. That's a bit of a clash. You go up against these people. They've got an agenda.
For sure.
I broke down the speech of Kathleen's. We won't have time to get to it today, but it circles around. It doesn't really finish what it's doing. It's very defensive posture, and we'll talk about
There's
it later.
There's something important about the language that's used there.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's like a spell.
Even the first press release by Trudeau about wanting to legalize in Canada, the most used words there are street gangs and organized criminals. And the only thing that makes folks that are selling cannabis into criminals is the law.
Exactly.
It's not a moral problem, because they're doing a generally good thing, as my experience shows me. But so they're organized, which means that they've discussed it.
Right.
Organized criminals.
And they just came in and said,
we're
okay,
doing this well.
We don't like that you're doing this, so you're a criminal, and we'll arrest you, and now we're going to do it, and we're not criminals, and it's okay that we're making money on it. It's a perception.
Exactly.
It's just a perception, and people have to stop where is this democracy they keep talking about, where most people want to do something, and but it's never running like that. All right, so let's call up Vikki on the phone. Hopefully she's there. Let's see if I can swing my earpiece up for you.
In Hamilton.
Is that Vikki?
It is. Yeah, hello.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. We're just talking about you on the show. I feel like you're
I know,
a sister.
I'm watching.
Oh, good. Well, hey, how's it going? So you saw what we played then. What was your...
Yeah, I did. I saw.
What was your technique to get the Premier's attention even in the first place?
I didn't really have a technique. I just raised my hand and hoped. But I think the fact that I was different in the age range, I think that kind of made me stand out a little bit.
Oh, good, yeah. And how did you feel when she was telling you her answer?
Well, they weren't very good. They were very scripted, right? Like, she wanted to kind of pander, which is what she's continued to do. She just wants to seem like she's got it under lock, but really she doesn't have any idea what's going on and what our community is facing right now. Yeah.
So, okay, well, tell us a little bit about where you work, and tell folks where you are. Listen, Hamilton's in a bit of a crosshairs right now with the crackdowns. Toronto took it for a while, and it's kind of a war zone, right? I mean,
right. No, absolutely. Yeah. So
access.
Hamilton, we were doing well. Our PD was, for the most part, leaving us alone, and until I guess there were a few that were getting hit, and then back in February, in the middle of February, they hit pretty much all of us, and that included MMJs, Eden, Pacific Coast. So they were really at that point looking to get really a lot of the medicinal dispensaries.
What happens to the cannabis they take?
Frankly, I've seen some of the numbers that have been reported on the Toronto Police website from dispensaries they've taken, and I quite frankly think those numbers are extremely low. That's been reported, the cash and product. I think that I don't know where a lot of that product's going, to be honest with you, and I think that we should be asking.
You're saying that the amounts that they bust and take
the amount that they're reporting, I think, is different from the amount they're actually taking from dispensaries, yes.
And by different, you mean lower because they're taking more than that?
Yes, I think they end up taking a lot more product out of the store and cash, and a lot more, for some reason, seems to not get reported. And these are just from what I've seen the numbers to be. But if they're rating Toronto and saying they're getting away with $3,000 on a Friday night, I've got something to tell them, and that's that they're lying.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I just wanted people to understand these numbers. They're so gigantic. I used to have a stand-up joke about it when I was doing the oil thing. And I said, no, I know everybody wants to know, where do you get a good quality pound of pot on a Friday night? And the answer is a police evidence storage locker. But hurry up, because...
We joke about that all the time. We say that police office parties are probably getting a little more lit nowadays.
So, okay, so when you're in one of these dispensaries that gets busted, have you been in when you got busted?
I haven't, actually. So the day my dispensary was raided, I was not here. It was a day off. It was a Tuesday. It was just a normal day. So we had my two bud tenders in, and they will basically bully you into giving somebody's name up, or they will pick one of you. They'll pick one of you to be arrested, to give them the information, be it the safe numbers or what have you, and then they will arrest and try to place charges on at least one employee, it seems.
And then they take
which is just a waste of money, because we're seeing over and over that these are getting dropped. I just don't see why we're wasting these police resources. Like in Hamilton alone, we've seen riots literally on our streets in the past couple weeks with no arrests. People are getting stabbed, and this is where we're putting our resources, and I think people need to get upset with this. Like, this is where your tax dollars are going to.
Well, it sounds likely to me that if the process seems to be now that let's just arrest everybody and grab everything, and then the judiciary later releases everybody, that maybe it's just about grabbing the things.
There's a thing.
It could be, and I don't know that for sure, so I don't want to make any allegations.
No, I'm saying it's worth a look at, huh?
Yeah. Let's talk about
I absolutely believe. I think they need to be way more transparent in this battle. I think they need to be very open with what they're doing.
Right.
The fact that they've just recently kind of released a number via tax dollars of what they'll be spending, which is $40 million to shut down dispensaries. They should have been telling taxpayers that the whole time.
Yeah.
The taxpayers had a chance to decide if that's where they feel like the money is appropriately allocated, which it is not. We have so many other issues facing Canadians right now. This is not one. We are here helping people. This is not where our police resources need to go.
Yeah. Well, you know what I like about you is that you're the antithesis of the cartoon version of the stoner that works in a place like this. You're obviously on top of your facts. You're very crisp. You're getting your point out. You've got an obvious emphasis on it through the enthusiasm of working towards what is right. And it comes through. So, this is another. You're just the way you're speaking is another counterpoint to the official narrative. But hey, I'm sitting here with Cody Lanktree now. I don't know if exactly. Can you hear anything?
I can. Yeah.
Okay, so Cody can hear you. Do you know Cody, right?
I do. We've met each other at a few events. We've been to a few of high society supper club events together. So
yeah, that sounds good. So you know about his movie then.
I do. Yes, Dispensed. I'm very excited. It's great. It's a really good way. It's just we need more platforms. That's exactly what we need is more people talking about this. I don't really know why we're so afraid to talk about this. We need to start yelling, honestly. We've been a very passive community, and it's time for us to kind of say it's our time.
It is. Hey, do you mind telling me if you spent any time answering questions or speaking with people after you were done with Kathleen Wynne? Did people come up to you and say things at all?
As a matter of fact, yes, and that's kind of one of the things I get nervous about is that I'm going to go into situations like that, and people are going to look at me and they're going to be like, "Oh, great, it's the pot girl," and she, can we? But it's not like that at all. Like afterwards, I did have 3 individuals of different, they one gentleman, 2 women of all age ranges, and they thanked me. They were like, one woman said she would not be here if she had not been able to take her CBD oil, and that was it. And then I was like, "This is why I'm here. This is why this needs to be said."
Yeah. That's so cool because I'm starting to realize this now because I did the same thing you did with Kathleen Wynne at a town hall back in November, and I had people coming up to me afterwards, and I said a lot of things to a lot of interested people, and I'm still in touch with a lot of them, and I keep building this sort of awareness of folks who have all the reason to believe that, this stuff does have some, for lack of a better word, magical properties to it when it's hitting so many ailments and illnesses at the same time. But people want to hear about this. And, the people listening to this show right now hopefully going to pass on the link to somebody else that, might be sitting on the fence. And the more we can sort of build these little points of awareness and spread it out that way, that's the truth, not these, let's sit in a back room and dream up a bunch of propagandic things we can indoctrinate the kiddies with about the dangers of it. Did you hear what at the beginning of the show? He said they're spending $40 million on a program to tell you what all the dangers are, and they're spending $0 on anything to tell you how good it is. So,
Right, exactly. And another thing is that I know this is going to be a really unpopular opinion, but I just think we need to start being honest at this point, and we need to stop using the save the children argument. I'm sorry, but there are children who benefit from this, all the time. And I'm not saying, roll your 16-year-old a doobie. I'm saying, look into cannabis as a medicine for your child. We need to, by saying we need to save the children from this horrible epidemic, we're limiting the children's access to it as a medicine, and that's wrong.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously a very well-spoken person who knows all about this, so it's great having you on the show. Cody is sitting here now. Are you going to pop down there later and get something from her?
Actually,
did you have a question for her?
Last night. I saw Vikki last night at the dispensary, and it was, they're really friendly, lovely folks. So just to take a moment to talk about
Cody wants to
what happened.
We're going to do that with Vikki.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cody wants to say something here. I don't know if you can hear him or not.
I can.
Okay, perfect.
So to discuss what happened with the bust of Eden, where Vikki works, is basically that took, and we know these numbers from looking at how they were doing busts in Vancouver, and the police department there has been very open about it. It takes about 2 months to investigate a dispensary to the point where the police can go in and do that actual bust. And it's anywhere between 4 cops and 8 cops, just depending on the size of the place, will rush in a quick moment and stop everything. And they won't. It's important that everybody know that they're not arresting anybody that's there for buying and not charging anybody that's there for buying, because I think that's scaring a lot of people away from dispensaries and keeping people away from getting their medicine.
They very rarely go after clients. That is true, yes.
They're looking for one person. What they really want is the owner to lay a charge on so that they can stop the dispensary from operating. So that's an interesting thing to know.
Well,
but
why wouldn't they bust those people anyway? I mean, isn't that against the law, technically speaking? Not that I'm a fan of this, but is it just like they're deciding not to use that law or what? Not supposed to be doing that if that's what their laws are?
Not supposed to be doing that in a strict legal sense. Yes, that's what the law is, but time and time again, we've had that proven in the court that folks that are in medical need can purchase cannabis, and people can provide it. And that's an important thing for people. And the ACMPR kind of sucks.
I don't know why you can't make that whole line connect and go, therefore, the people that purvey it should not be regarded.
Exactly. And I signed up as a patient for Eden, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to reveal their practices here, but I had to demonstrate medical need.
Oh, I think that's
in
an
order
okay
to
practice to
seems
reveal.
very
It's
reasonable.
pretty standard, yeah.
And the cost for the bust of Eden that one time is $30,000-ish, somewhere in that range. So that's 2 months of a couple cops working on proving that they should go bust this place for the sale of cannabis, and then getting 4 to 8 officers out there to do this, and then processing charges on a single person in order to discourage this place from operating.
It's really quite a large number of resources. There's a lot of actual issues and a lot of actual violent issues that need to be resolved, and we need to really stop, allocating so much money towards police to do this when they should be doing their jobs. They should be protecting and serving the public, right? This is not doing that.
So it's $1 million or thereabouts if you go with the $30,000 per bust for all of the busts that have happened in Hamilton over the last year. That's $1 million. $1 million. And there's $1 million more
Maybe that's part
to
of the
come before legalization.
Maybe that's part of the education package as well, through busts.
And that's another thing, too, is the government really needs to start being more open about the fact that this all derived from awful propaganda in the 1930s, and that they made people fall for it via racist propaganda, and they need to come out and they need to say they were wrong. It's not about us, getting a little bit. It's not about us getting an inch and they're giving us, a mile or whatever. We deserve this, and we need to stand up and we need to say it, absolutely, and that's all. And we're owed an apology, and the victims of prohibition, and that being families that have been ripped apart and what have you, they deserve
we need to force that on right now. We need to force that right now. We need to push that very notion. You just said that right there. We have to push that through. We had Stephen Harper, Prime Minister, in some measure apologizing for the native school scandals of decades gone by. That's what he was apologizing for. They have Mark Saunders, the police chief, apologized for the raids on the gay bathhouses 30 years earlier. It's always a different police chief that's saying these things. And those reparations have been, made, at least articulated. You're absolutely right. We have to go right down the throat with that. That's absolutely...
absolutely. It's something we just need to, at this point, stop being passive, because being passive has gotten us nowhere, and it's gotten us to continuous unfair cannabis laws, and now it's got to be a point where it's a fight.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's nonsensical to continue with these notions that are so, like you say, you're selling the stuff, and that's okay if a medical person needs it, but not to be able to obtain it. It's just ridiculous. But we know about these things from the 30s, and Harry Anslinger. We'll do a little bit of that at the end of the show. I'm going to thank you for coming on, and we're going to have you on yourself sometime. I want to hear all about your business and what you do there and how it works and how it should work, because it's not going to reflect the current government model. Which
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me. And anytime you guys have my Instagram, you mess with me anytime. I'm always down to yell for the cause.
And what is your Instagram?
So it's Vikki.ElizabethXO.
Yeah, but you spell Vikki tricky, don't you?
I spell it a little tricky. It's Vikki.
Vikki, just one I?
Just the one I in my Instagram, I believe. So I might be wrong. I think there's 2 on my Facebook and 1 on my Instagram. So I don't know.
So you don't know if your name, you're not really aware of how many vowels you're actually touting around there, would you say?
Well, my actual name is Victoria, but I've been Vikki since like 16. So.
Okay, well, you can have as many eyes as you want. Keep them all on the prize. All right, well, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very, very much. You guys have a great one.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
She seems really nice.
Oh, she's a darling.
Huh? That's cool. So that's what they do in dispensaries, is they just do the business of dispensing in a way that people understand, based on a decades-old model, going back to, why mess with that, especially when you're coming up with $650,000 logos. Like, I don't trust the planning mind.
It's interesting that all dispensaries are not equal.
No.
And they could be, if they, like, all dispensaries out in Vancouver are going to be operating under a set of regulations. All of the dispensaries in Ontario right now are completely unregulated. And you've got places like Eden, where Vikki works, that they pay their taxes. They want to have regulation. They're actively working and meeting with the city of Hamilton to try to get regulated. Eden, one of the things that I've noticed is that they won't sell edibles because that's illegal under bylaw in Hamilton. So no matter how you process the edibles, it's still an illegal thing under bylaw.
Right.
And a lot of dispensaries do, and I've got no problem
silly,
with that.
though, you know, doesn't it
but,
just...
So there's a certain margin that Eden's at. They're kind of at the high end, really nice place. They're not blasting music or, you know, and it's not a crazy environment. And then you've got like kind of a lot of the, you know, and that's kind of where MMJ is and stuff like that. It's a professional corporate store. Yeah. And that's great. It suits my needs. And then you've got...
What are these other places like?
Well, then there's Village Dispensary, which is kind of like it used to be the cannabis culture dispensary in Hamilton. So it's open by a Supreme Court legal injunction. It might be the only technically very, very legal dispensary in Canada at this point. I'm not really entirely sure, or at least in Ontario. And they serve medical needs only, and it's a little bit more casual, and they have a broader selection of things. I can't really speak for them as to what they're offering directly, but you know,
or you'll get in trouble.
That's exactly that's your classic cannabis place vibe.
Yeah.
And as we've all seen cannabis culture go through their busts and stuff like that, so that shifted ownership and is a different kind of place right now that is legally open.
Wow.
And that I won't deny it at all. There's a couple places, and I've been to 100 dispensaries at this point. I counted the other day, came and toured like 50, 60 of them in Toronto and toured a bunch in Hamilton. And I've been to a couple where I felt really uncomfortable. I've been to a couple where I thought, whoa, these are just people that are setting up to rake in some cash, and it doesn't look like they're selling something that's a good product, and I'm not okay with being here right now.
Little antenna picking that up.
Yeah, it's just a vibe that you get. But that's not what the majority of them are. The majority of them are professional, presenting and looking cool and having a good time. And you watch how the people that come in interact with the people that are working or owning these places, and it's community. It's how was that last time? You know, how did that work for you? Did that help the pain that you were in?
Because they're stepping into the place where they know they should be doing it.
Yeah. It's not quite a clinic. They're not quite doctors, but they're people that genuinely care and do have a lot of information and knowledge that has been acquired collectively by a mass group of people that have worked towards this legalization process. And in Ontario, they're getting screwed.
Yeah, that's for sure. Ontario is definitely it. So, where can we get a hold of you when you're doing your stuff? Like you've got your website, you've got the film, you've got other films too.
Yeah,
we're waiting for Dispensed.
We're a film company called HamiltonSeen. That's SEEN. Right. So we're at HamiltonSeen.com. I'm Cody Lanktree on Facebook, but right now we are Dispensed With. So it's at Dispensed With on Twitter. It's at Dispensed With on Instagram. These kinds of things.
And the movie, the Indiegogo.
There's an Indiegogo campaign. We're trying to bring together a little bit of money to help market this, and we're in the process of making it right now. So we've got, a half dozen interviews down, and we've got another 18 more to go.
Right.
I'm shooting this right now, so we might include a little snippet of my conversation with you into the film. And it's all a process of learning. And what we're doing is we want people that see this film to understand how to protect themselves, because we're not going to stop this law.
This is basically what you're doing and what I'm doing is basically the counter propaganda to what they're going to be putting out with the kids standard, like Vikki was saying about the kids,
Oh, the street gangs and the organized crime, they're all coming for the children.
And that's what it is. And why do we have a black market? Well, because we're assuming control and stricture. That's why you have a black market. We've got to take it to Portugal, where they just decriminalized everything and they put all the allocated resources that they would have been spending on policing to the harm reduction, which was far less, because now you don't have all the social problems going along with the usage.
I would ask anybody that's listening to this and thinks that we're doing a kind of neat thing with trying to educate folks and help medical patients and help get some more real fact-based knowledge out there. in a way that makes sense to people, not just reading a study, but talking about it and talking through it and talking to the people that did it and talking to people in dispensaries and talking to medical patients about what their needs are and what their fears are. If you like what we're doing, check out the Indiegogo campaign, share it with folks.
And that is
and tell them that you think it's important.
And the website for that is?
There's a link at dispensedwith.com. I think it's igg.at/me/dispensedwith is the direct link.
Okay. Well, that's good. Indiegogo, Cody Lanktree, thanks for coming. Now, when
My
do we
pleasure.
give me some of the timeline we're looking at? So, how long is it going to be, do you think? However well the fundraising goes, when are you going to be kind of hoping to release this?
So the ultimate goal is to release it before the quote-unquote legalization, which means that our deadline is a shifty, weird one, because they said July 1st, and they weren't accurate about that.
No.
And then they said, no, not July 1st.
So you're just trying
and
to
they're
sync
like
it up.
August-ish, September-ish. And I'm like, I'm making a movie here, guys. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be a professional about this stuff.
You got to keep
Can you get
delaying.
your stuff together and tell me when this is happening?
That's funny.
So we're looking at it. It's probably August. It's probably September. We'll have the film all done
Ready
by,
to hitch whenever
by the
they
July
kick it open.
deadline, and
Okay.
then we're gonna be doing a lot of promotion and educational stuff throughout that process and getting the word out there.
Well, that's good. I look forward to it. So now I know it's a floating start time because they keep moving
I wish
it around.
wasn't.
I wish it wasn't. Also, thank you very much for coming
My
in.
pleasure, sir.
Got a few more things to cover before we go back to what are we going to go back to? We're going to go back to the blizzard, I guess. It was kind of snowing before, but now it's okay. So we do have some other things to discuss here on the show. Things you got to get to know this shit. Now, this is kind of the roundup that I wanted to get across to you with these folks spending all of this money, these millions of dollars, this $650,000 logo. These are the minds that are putting these laws together, and they're ignoring things that are so huge. Now, we just had Cody talking about his situation where his life improved using this wonderful substance. Listen to this. In the Georgia Straight survey says nearly half of people using CBD stop taking prescriptions and traditional medications. But it's not about the money. Okay, 80% of respondents found CBD to be very or extremely effective. I like that they had to choose between, is it very effective or extremely effective? Well, I don't know. Come back tomorrow.
Fantastically.
New survey results about a well-known compound in cannabis, the CBD, shows that these doctors are getting some exciting information, which is beyond anecdotal. So let's stop freaking around with this. But here is part of the problem. Now, this needs to be played before we close our show today. This is for sure. My goodness. This news report from a couple of days ago, the timing on this, if you know everything that you've heard on this show and are folks in the business that know what's going on with the laws, what they're drawing up, what they've been trying to draw up, what they've been promising is going to be excellent legislation, people working hard. We're doing such a great job of all of this, and the other folks that were doing it are criminals, and we're on top of things, and it's going to be wonderful, and you know, you have to smoke it at home, and it's in a boring box, and you're not allowed to enjoy it, and we're going to fix the price just below the black market, but just high enough, but not enough too much to have people think it's worthy for your lifestyle. And these are the folks making decisions, and now this comes out a couple of days ago. Check this out. This is from CBC News. This should cause you alarm. This is not from years ago. This is from the other day. All right, so here we go with this joke.
There was money in last week's federal budget for this. As well, there are already studies looking into a range of things, everything from how pot affects people's ability to drive and how it may affect women who want to become pregnant. The federal government's point man on this whole issue, Bill Blair, says that much of what is known about marijuana is anecdotal. That applies to the therapeutic benefits of marijuana as well. And that if the federal government is going to give people advice on how to use marijuana responsibly, there just has to be more scientific research and evidence to back that up.
But we'll go ahead and design an entire system of distribution and tell everybody who's been working on it for decades that they're doing it wrong, even though we don't know anything. And even though this just came out the other day, which is well after the year that they said they were taking to sit down and figure out what the fuck is going on with how to distribute this thing that we all have rights and access to, just by letting us have rights and access to what's already working. So I'm really tired of this mindset of two groups of people. Number one, the people that do this. This whole system is ridiculous. And number two, the people that follow along and go, oh, well, I guess it's going to be illegal. The government says so anyway. Like, you have to understand this is a big old screw job. They're only now looking into what does it do? How does it work? And the timelines are nuts. Now, if this report came out 5 years ago and the government is pondering legalizing cannabis someday, okay, fine. But this is fresh off the hop. And these freaks have already drawn up all kinds of punitive legislation based on ignorance and lies and oppression. And they don't realize that they've already arrested thousands of people, ruined thousands of relationships, scared the shit out of thousands of kids. And these are probably low numbers. And you've got some reparations to make. You can't just plow ahead with all of this bullshit. The reason we've been sitting here calling it bullshit for so long is because you're only now finding out the things you're supposed to find out before you even sit down and figure out what your structure is going to be with a cop who used to be the city cop of Toronto at the helm, who's also responsible. As soon as this guy's done with government, when they vote this guy out eventually, he's going to have a cannabis joint of his own also. Bill Blair's blurry blue. Fuck off. Get these cops out of this thing.
It worries me that I could barely hear that through your headphones, but what I heard in that serious news story was the word marijuana over and over again. So like, and I've learned this, and I'm not saying everybody should know this, but marijuana is a very bad word, and it's a racist word.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that you avoid using it. Most of the people that I've talked to that take cannabis seriously avoid using it, and yet serious news outlets are using it. And this indicates their level of understanding and their level of knowledge about this.
Right.
And we're hearing folks that are, trying to run for premier using the word marijuana.
I know.
And I mean, it just makes me crazy that they're not educated enough to understand that. So how can we trust them to educate the public on these things?
It's incredible. They're so behind the times, but they always are. Right? I mean, look how long they've been racist towards people of color. Look at, why is that going to change? This is the same thing over again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a couple more pieces to get through before we get through. I just want to give you a quick preview of what we're going to be talking about next week, among other things. But just a few salient points I'd like to drop based on some of these things of the day. Now, this is in Fox News. So welcome to the American listeners, that's where a lot of people in the States get their news. Support for marijuana legalization surges to a record high. Now, forget the joke about high. I'm just trying to tell you that, democratically speaking, most people want this. Now, here's a scumbag alert. Here's a fella. His name is Paul Kenward. He's the husband of Victoria Atkins MP in England, and she is the UK drugs minister, and he grows cannabis for a living. This is in clear-uk.org. Kenward is managing director of British Sugar, which grows cannabis under a contract to GW Pharmaceuticals at its 45-acre greenhouse in Wissington, Norfolk. Or Wissington, probably. Wissington, go get some cannabis from the sugar shack. As confirmed by British Sugar, the cannabis is for production of epidoliolex. I don't know what it is. Don't take it. GW is epilepsy medicine, which is understood to be 98% cannabidiol, or CBD. So they got a crazy way of going about it. But there's a conflict of interest there. So you've got people in government with conflict of interest. You've got cops and former cops who need to be making reparations and helping folks who know what they're doing in this business of dispensaries, etc., enhance their production abilities so that they are, as Cody said earlier, folks that care and want to give you the right thing and understand how it works, as opposed to a fly-by-night operation whose only means to exist is in a black market society. So we've got guys like that. Now, we got good guys, too. I've been digging trying to find a good politician on this. It's tough. And so I found one in Tennessee. This is the Speaker of the House. And this guy says, states need to stand up for medical marijuana patients. Now, he's doing that, so I'm going to give him a pass on using marijuana as a term, because he probably got a Tennessee accent. Well, he says it too. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. This dude, Brian Terry, is going to hopefully pass legislation, and he's a Republican, look at that, to allow oil-based medications to be prescribed in Tennessee. Now, you can't believe Tennessee is going to surpass Ontario in its ability to proffer a healthy substance such as this. So why is this all also taking longer in the Senate, do you think? Why is the Senate taking a little bit too long, maybe, and it's going to be uncomfortable, and no one's exactly sure what's going to happen at certain levels? I guess it might be because in herb.co it says the United Nations has just warned its member states, including, I guess, Canada and America and most places, to keep recreational cannabis illegal. So they're going to be breaking some kind of treaty, according to this UN report.
You got the date on that treaty? From 1964, I think it was?
Something like that. Yeah, 1964, there's going to be a revision of the treaty, or there's going to be a... And hey, you guys know what it's like to break a treaty down there, don't you? You guys know exactly what it's like to break a treaty when it's the natives, so maybe that's what's going to be happening this time, the other way around. And the folks that have access to this wonderful plant are going to get to continue to do so because it's a healthful substance. And if you're concerned about folks hurting themselves on it, then teach them what's good about it and how it actually works. Otherwise, what are you trying to do but rake in money from some kind of purveyor, some kind of slammer of information that is designed to line a pocket at the expense of others' freedoms. And that's not too cool. We've caught on to it. We're aware this is what's happening. And thanks for Cody for coming in today to tell us about his film.
My pleasure, sir. Absolutely.
Thanks for Vikki at the Dispensary. Thank you for listening. Thank you for entering contests. We have more at Green Crush Pod. We're on Facebook and Instagram and all of these wonderful social things that are doing things. And we're trying to spend as much time on that as possible, as opposed to having AI, if that's worth anything to you, as much as possible on social media. And we do answer our comments, tweets, Twitters. And we do have more guests coming up. And when I thought this might be a 6 to 10 show venture to get out what I thought I needed to get out, I didn't realize how deep into it I was getting, so I'm going to try to keep going with this show. I want to thank Kim Sakamoto, my producer, Danny Menlo, my producer, the three of us. And thank you for trying to open your mind, at least be open enough to maybe even help yourself out and realize that a plant can actually save your life.
We just had a rotten nightmare, that's all. Now we're awake and everything's gonna be fine.